We go to the unfolding electoral story there. Provisional results released after the polls indicate that the 92-year-old President Paul Biya is headed for another 7-year term, putting him on course to stay in power until he's nearly 100 years old. The announcement has, as you can imagine, sparked protests in several cities. Opposition leaders say that around 30 politicians and activists have been detained in connection with the unrest. Government officials reject claims of electoral irregularities and urge calm as the final results are awaited. Well, joining us now is Alfred Bulakali, who's Regional Director of Article 19, Senegal and West Africa. And this is a leading rights organization monitoring freedom of expression, access to information, and civic space across the region. Alfred, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much indeed for joining us again.
I thank you, Mr. Peter, to give me the opportunity to join this conversation. Good morning.
All right, so from what you and your team at Article 19 have been observing, what are the most significant irregularities or concerns that have emerged for you in this electoral process?
We are, we have been following the situation in Ivory Coast since the last 3 months, because the election is not just the day of the vote, it's the whole process to monitor the upholding of human rights, access to information, freedom of expression, civic preparations for the populations. And what we have seen so far is that there were a lot of situations affecting freedom of expression. Key examples can be the different attacks on the right to protest. In August, for example, people who tried to protest on the matter of the process, hundreds of them were arrested. What was the same case in October, just a few days before the election days. We saw also some attacks on the integrity of information. For example, a journalist of France 24 was victims of online attacks simply because reporting an event of the opposition. And we saw also some campaign of disinformation around the process that was reported by the actors and media. But and lastly, we saw simply a decree banning the protest around during the last week of the election campaign. I mean, protest that is not in line with the campaign. What prevented citizens with the possibility to express different views around the process, and what is, for me, something that undermines not only the freedom of expression, but also the right to protest and the political participation itself, because we think it's very important for the government when election is happening to uphold the entire fundamental freedoms and also to enable citizens to access all the different opinions of those who are working, who are favorable to the process, but also for those who are contesting the process or part of the process, so as they are able to make informed decisions. So also that the process itself is receive the trust of the citizens, and that the participation is very inclusive of all opinions. That's what we have been noting during the process, that for us, again shows that the electoral appointment is not simply a momentum of joy, of enjoyment of the full human rights, but unfortunately can be opportunity for some governments to limit, to restrict the exercise of fundamental freedoms, especially those expressing dissident voices in public spaces. Unfortunately, also election is being more and more across the continent and even out of the continent. Times for massive disinformation to flow and affect, unfortunately, the quality of information, and that can also have impact on the choices of the populations. So that's what we've been seeing. But let me welcome the fact that comparing to the election of 2020, the electoral there you have been this time very very calm. There have been small incidents, but in global, the election went calmly comparing to the last processes. Briefly, this is
Alfred,
what
tell
I
me,
can
do
note
you
for
think
Ivory
that there
Coast
is a
election.
danger of this unrest escalating if President Biya is re-elected, or the announcement is made that he has been re-elected?
Uh, okay, Peter. Let's now move to Cameroon. The situation in Cameroon, comparing, because I've been mentioning the situation in Ivory Coast. The situation in Cameroon is particular because all the weekend we saw different protests across the country. We also saw arrest of some political leaders and some political militants of the oppositions. Yes, we need to say that the process in Cameroon, unfortunately, have been an opportunity for the government to limit very, very seriously the opposition contest, and also to create conditions of fear for citizens expressing dissident opinions. We are following the situations like others, and we are calling for the government and all stakeholders intervening in this process to make sure that human rights, especially right to protest, rights, freedom of expression, plurality of information and opinions are upheld by the government and all the stakeholders involved in the process. This is the opportunity really to call for the government of Cameroon to make sure that this election process and the result that will be proclaimed sooner is opportunity to consolidate the democracy by enabling the different voices to flow in public spaces, and also enabling the different opinions to be able to be held without fearing for repression, because simply you are expressing dissident opinions, or you are expressing views that are in line with the government. Yes, regarding the trends, especially this weekend, and the number of arrests and the measures that are taken, and even threatening speech from government members on the media, there is reason to fear for violence, or simply for the increase of repression on dissident voices.
I know that you watch electoral processes across West Africa in particular. And with Cote d'Ivoire having its elections on Saturday, very similar in terms of opposition figures being repressed, and all kinds of freedoms being curtailed. What would you say is the state of democracy across the continent from your observations. Some countries seem to be progressing, if I think of Senegal, and then others, sadly, not so much.
Yeah, let me say that democracy is a very long pathway. And again, it's very important for our governments on the continent to ensure that election democracy is not just organizing election on a regular basis, but making sure that we have fair, transparent, inclusive, and peaceful elections. That during all the process, human rights, freedom of expression, and flow of information and other fundamental rights are respected and guaranteed to make sure that this very important appointment for democracy and freedom of expression is enjoyed by the citizens without fearing for repression. I will say that this is really a very difficult time for democracy in Africa. For example, in the region where I live, West Africa, we have about, I would say, 4 countries under military leadership after military coup. I mean, Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger. We've been that's really a good deny and attack on democracy, and also confiscation of the political right to participate by citizen, confiscation by a minority of people who use force
Right, right,
to take and to exercise the power. But we've been also seeing that in countries that continue to organize the election, there is more and more trend to exclude opposition leaders. But also that's the case on Ivory Coast that we are discussing now, where the exclusion of 2 prominent opposition Babo and Tijan were seen like something affecting the inclusion of the political process. Of course, this was done through a justice process that I can't comment, but in the global opinion, it was seen like a mean to exclude a certain opinion
right, right,
in the election process and to exercise the right of participation.
right.
This also is
Alfred,
under
unfortunately,
discussion in Benin
we've
and
run out of
other
time.
countries.
Alfred, I wish.
We've
Yeah,
seen Togo violence following the election, and this is
yeah,
really very concerning. And we hope our countries will continue to make a lot of effort to make sure that this process
right.
becomes momentum for citizens to enjoy really democracy and the right to participate in the political process.
Alfred, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so, so much indeed for your observations and analysis. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Peter, for giving me the space to contribute to this conversation.
That was Alfred Bulakali, who's the regional director of Article 19 in Senegal and West Africa.
Darubini ya Afrika.